today is the last day of our unit before we take our unit exam over solving. This lesson today is over something called direct variation, which ties into a concept that you learned in junior high school called proportions. So when you were in junior high, you learned that you could take a number over another number and set it equal to another number over a number. So those are called proportions, and we're going to do something called cross multiplying to be able to solve. So just like in the earlier sections of this chapter, we are still just solving for a variable, but in this day today, it just looks a little different than it has in the previous days. So what this says here is that we have y varies directly with x. Y is 42 when x is 21. What is the value of x when y is 16? So that looks very difficult, but it's actually really, really easy. So what it says is we need to take our first y value and put it over our x value. So if we look at this example, the first y value is a 42 over our first x value is a 21. And we're going to set that equal to, and then it says it needs the y over the x. So the other y value is a 16 over, what is the value of x? We do not know, so we put the letter x. So to solve a proportion, we do something called cross multiplying. What that means is we take the numbers across and we multiply. 42 times x is just 42x. We set it equal to the other side. So we cross multiply 16 times 21. And that gives the number 336. So now we are just solving an equation like we've been doing for the last 3 weeks. To solve for x, I need to divide by 42 and divide by 42. So my answer is 336 divided by 42 is the number x equals 8. Very easy. So go ahead and try the same setup for number 2. Once you're done with number 2, let's look at number 3. So in number 3, it says, if y is directly proportional to x, it will say this every single time. It'll always start with that phrase right there. It says when y is 11, x is 6. What is the value of y when x equals 9? So again, in this portion of algebra, we're just taking our y value and we're putting it over our x value. Then we're taking our other y value. Oh, there isn't another y value. So we put the letter y over the other x value, which is a 9. So it's very important that for this to work, it has to be y over x equals the y over the x. Next chapter, the reason why we are putting y over x will make much more sense, but in this chapter, we are just practicing the solving portion of it. So if you can set it up by taking your y over your x equals your y over your x, then you can solve this very easily. So now that we've set this up correctly, again, we just need to cross multiply. So what that means is we go across and we multiply. 11 times 9 is the number 99. Equals the other side. 6 times y is the number 6y. We're just solving for a letter, just like we've been doing for the last 3 weeks. So we divide by 6, we divide by 6. That gets y by itself. 99 divided by 6 is the number 16.5. So I have a y equals 16.5. Very easy. So in every single equation, you need to find the y value over the x, set it equal to a y value. If you don't have a value, just put the letter y over the x. So go ahead and try number 4, which looks just like number 3. Again, we're just solving equations like we have been, but we have to set them up like proportions. Since it says proportion, we're setting up the proportion, multiplying across, and solving. Very easy. So go ahead and take a minute and try numbers 4 and 5. So now that you've completed numbers 1 through 5, you can go ahead and try the same thing with number 6 and number 7. When you're doing 6 and 7, make sure that you remember we take the y value over the x and we set it equal to the y value over the x value. Very easy. Okay, so now we're going to look at these last ones, which will look very familiar, very similar to how you guys did these in junior high school. They're very easy. It's the same thing, even a little bit easier actually. So if we look at example 8, it says, suppose the scale on a map is 2 centimeters, which would equal 15 miles. So we're going to set this up just like we would a proportion. It says the number of miles between 2 points represented on the map is directly proportional, that's the phrase that we read on the first page, to the number of centimeters you measure on that map. What is the distance in miles between 2 cities that are 11.2 centimeters apart on the map? So if we look at this, it's giving me more centimeters. So that means that I need to put the 11.2 centimeters on the same side of the fraction that I had put the original centimeters here. So now we're just solving for how many miles we have here. So just like we did before, this is still a cross multiplication question. We set up our proportion, which was very easy. So this is 2 times x, which is just 2x, equals 11.2 times 15, which is 168. To solve for x, we divide by 2, and we divide by 2. So we did one side of the proportion equals the other side of the proportion. So we set up 2x equals 168. Get x by itself by dividing by 2. So my final answer is that x equals 84. And the question is, what is the distance in miles? So I'm going to put the word miles. Very easy. I'll try one more with you, and then you can try number 10. So we're going to do the same thing with number 9. It says the height of water in a bucket varies directly, that's that word that we were doing on the first page, with the number of seconds that the faucet has been on. After 9 seconds, the water is 4 inches high. How many seconds will it take for the water to be 15 inches high? So in this one, it gives me more inches, so I put that inch number on the same side of the fraction that I had put the original inches number. Okay, so now the question is how many seconds? So we're solving how many seconds. I just put the letter Y. I could have put a question mark. I could have put anything right here, but this is what we're solving for. So now that we have our proportions set up, I'm going to cross multiply. 9 times 15 is the number 135. 4 times y is the number 4y. We get y by itself by dividing by 4 and dividing by 4. So my answer is y equals 33.75. The question was how many seconds? So I'm going to write seconds. So go ahead and try that same idea with number 10. When it says tons, you don't have to put any extra numbers. 20,000 people make 12 tons. How many people make 90 tons? Very easy. Try the same thing for number 10.